in all the ranting I've done about the issues that I'm seeing in the world, in America specifically, I got so stressed out, right? Because this wasn't just something that started happening when I started releasing my recordings. This happened for this has been happening. I would say maybe since 2016, even. Just a slow process of me losing my mind over what's going on in the world and how this could be happening. So, that said, I value solutions, right? I know there's a lot of content creators out there that focus on what's happening in the current events, and it's really necessary for that. We need that, and I understand that everybody has only so much bandwidth, so there's a lot to grapple with, with the history of it and where things are now, and speculation about where they might be going, and so on. There's a lot of ground to cover there, and I can't necessarily fault people for getting so caught up in that, especially since that's what works and that's what pays their bills. And that's a perfect segue, actually, into this project because what pays our bills is often what keeps us tied to this way of living. The things that are happening are a result of that which mandates our participation in this system. So it's incestuous, and the only way to break free of it, as many of you know on the left, is to have a system that can operate independently of the one that's corrupt, right? If it doesn't do us any good to expect change, yet continue to fund and prop up in every way the system that's broken. So I've come up with my way of dealing with that. It started with learning about the general strike movement, and I'll even credit Paul Zigo from Deep Fat Fried with this, having informed me about this concept. I think I'd heard a little bit about unions here and there, but actually didn't. Honestly, before he really kind of went in depth about that, and I've had a lot of issues with what this guy said. So I don't on other things, and I think sometimes he just shoots from the hip way too often, and, and doesn't put that much thought into his takes. Now, I'm sure that he would disagree heavily with that, given that he's as old as he is and has so much experience. But that's enough of the shit talk. I really want to give him credit for kind of informing me more on these things. And the general strike movement was something I probably wouldn't have looked into at all, not having heard about the concept of general striking from him. So, credit to Paul Zigo there. Vindicated once again. Well, anyway. Um, Crisp. Crisp is my answer to how we can actually have a general strike. The worst part about a general strike is what in at face value, just the first time you hear about it, it's like, oh yeah, if everybody just stopped working. But then of course the very next thing that comes to mind is, well, how do we eat? How do we stay sheltered? And the list goes on. Well, the only thing I can think of is to build the infrastructure ourselves. I don't know why that doesn't seem to be happening to the degree that it should, especially in this time. There's a lot of advocacy out there for voting and getting out there and protesting and letting them know how mad we are. But like we've had, God, what was it? Was it 11 million? No, it wasn't. it was like 7 million. There was some 9 million, something in that range of people that turned out for the most recent No Kings rallies, and those are huge, and that's like I, I think that that's kind of where the protests need to stop. Once we've turned out in those numbers and we're still dealing with this shit, it's only gotten worse. It's time to course correct and reevaluate how we're coming at this because it's insane. I know that I come off a certain way when I make these rants and whatever, but to me, from this perspective, looking at those people who are out there singing and whatever in front of these places, it's maddening. It makes me feel like them and the people that advocate that shit in the comment sections are they're high or they're just oppositions. Like I am genuinely being honest about that. That thought comes to mind. I'm just like these they can't be real. And the only other answer I could have for that is that they are just looking for clicks, right? They're posting this up somewhere on their channels, and some other useless liberals are gonna just click on it and be like, "Yeah, good for you. You went and sang to the ICE officers, to the fucking Nazis, and they're Nazis." And actually, as far as I'm concerned, they've given up any last bit of humanity that they might have had when taking that position. I don't care what their reasoning was for it, or what they might say it was for. Um, they crossed a line, and after this much time, they should know better, and they're worthless. So yeah, I literally don't care. You could turn them into living pincushions, and I wouldn't give a fuck. But let's keep it on track here. CRISP. It's supposed to be that infrastructure that separates us from the system that led to all of that. By creating a network of gardeners, um, kind of not quite suburban, but if we can get suburban membership, I'm not going to turn it down. One cause at a time, people. So yeah, that's something we have issues with on the left too. Is everybody wants to stack up all of the problems all at once. Oh, we got problems in the suburbs, and we need to change all that infrastructure. It's a drain on a resource. Blah blah blah. It's like, look, one fucking problem at a time. We have more pressing issues to deal with. Um, now I'm doing it. Over here fucking shadow boxing and shit. Alright, well, they're out there. You know who you are. So, the network of gardeners and other organizations, unions, uh, nonprofits. There's one that I'm fond of, and I really want to be able to partner with them. But in order to do that, CRISP, that is currently kind of structured as an LCA, a limited cooperative association, needs to be a nonprofit, which I did look into that, and I guess it's possible. But even if if they would be willing to partner with us to do that, to do this work, to they can facilitate picking up the resources from our gardener members who donate, because I want to explain more about how this works. I know I'm really tripping over my feet here. So we would set up contracts with our gardener members. They can get a landscaped irrigation custom garden install, and in exchange for that, that would be at a upfront, like no cost upfront, sort of no interest loan basis, right? So in they pay it through a higher amount of member due, but it's a member due nonetheless. But it's going to be a higher amount based on the amount of uh, labor and resources went into their project. Once that's paid off, that's the first term of their membership, and then we would have like basic either month to month or 3 months, or some term based standard memberships that people can continue to participate and vote within the organization through that if they choose. But otherwise, once that's paid for, they don't have to be a member. It's done. And there's three ways that they can actually offset the costs as well. They can uh, just for the gardener members. Well, yeah, because the other member dues are much lower. I think we would go with 20, 25, something around that range a month. Um, Depending on what we need to get started. I don't want to commit to anything before we get somebody who's solid on the numbers to make this, to really flesh this out. So, let's see. They can do labor to pay it off. So, like, it would be a volunteer basis. They can, pick from any projects we have listed that we need help on, and they can spend, 16 hours in a month, right? So we're talking 2 8-hour days. That's a weekend to help out on one of these projects, and they get paid minimum wage, whatever that may be at the time. That's what they get paid, and the difference between that and $27 an hour gets to offset their member dues for that month. So that's another way they can sort of lower that. And the third would be donating produce. I haven't calculated that. Again, that's going to be a numbers thing, but it would be donating produce from their fresh produce from their garden. And we would work that out with them if they wanted to choose that option. So somebody could show up on like some basis or from, since we don't have the membership really to facilitate all of this, hopefully it would be an organization like Feeding Spokane. And they could go to these different houses, pick up fresh produce, and bring it to food banks as they do. And if there's a strike from a union, then we go in and rally all of our resources so we kind of stop putting it in the food banks, and we go, okay, we are going to, and hey, if we somehow work out a deal with the food bank, that would be awesome too. If they could like help sort of shift some extra resources off to the families that are of the striking workers, right? And the idea is to facilitate the longevity of these strikes, so that we can get a win under our belt. That's going to be the big win. Is if we can help in the negotiations of a striking union, golden. Then that's proof of concept right there, because that's the whole idea. It's changing that employer employee relationship, and that I want that to spread until we have worker cooperatives as the standard. And if you don't like that idea, you're probably a corporate shill, and we're coming for your ass. So I'm excited about this project. I've been working on it for a year now. We just need memberships. We need people on the board badly, and we just need to spread that awareness to reach out to these different organizations. But I don't want to do that until we have committed members, people that like myself who will be willing to put in a year's work. It's not 8 hours a day every day type of thing. Just until we get to that point where it can be. There's media and IT and uh, a list of different departments that need filled. Organizers, people that go on the ground with the community, set up events. I want to raise money to support these ideas, these structural goals, by raising the money in the community with let's say we do a block party or we rent this, we get a permit, we can have like 200 whatever amount of people at a location, a venue, park, or just on the block. Although, I, I suppose if we did a block party, it wouldn't be necessarily something like that. We'll talk about those things. There's restrictions around it, so I'm just kind of. Anyway, there could be vendors that show up to these locations when we do these events, and we would get a percentage, right, of what they make. I don't know. I don't know what's a good percentage. I'm not the numbers guy, so don't. Anything I throw out there is just kind of a filler, and it could be like 5%, 10%. I don't know. I don't know what's a good number. That's I'm not even going to be the guy to negotiate that, and I don't even want to. I want to be at most like the head of, and I want to be in a position to maintain the integrity of this organization, but I also at most would want to be a member on the board uh, as the installation manager or delegate. There's a lot to go into this, and I'd love to break it down more. I think that it'd be easier in sort of a conversational setting. So there is a Discord for this. There's a Reddit as well, though I'm really I don't mean to bad talk anybody else who's participated in this. There's actually somebody who helped me out with sort of help organizing the bylaws. I went line by line off of a template that was wrote up by like 3 different law groups in California. So I figured, hey, this is going to cover plenty, and it does. It covers everything. From kind of what happens when a member passes to our annual like dividends. It's very thorough, and if we're missing anything and you notice that, you feel free to point that out, and we can make some adjustments because I want this to cover as many bases as possible, but not be too overbearing, but making sure that it's maintaining the integrity of the organization. There's a lot that goes into it for voting, as well as like a democracy quotient that needs to be met before we can do serious voting on any structural matters, and that's there for a reason to make sure that nobody's unilaterally making decisions. Uh, yeah. Anyway, I could talk about this for days, but I'd love to get other people's opinions on it, and if you want to reach out, I'm going to put the information down in the description. Um, Another thing is I've been struggling with promoting this content. A lot of it's kind of fluff. It's old videos that I'd had on my storage, and I just decided, you know what? Why not practice editing with it? Put it out there. So there's some like Overwatch clips and things like that. And I do plan to do video game streamings. I do like video games. I'm not just using that to get more views, but that is also a part of kind of what this is about because I want eyes on this project. That's what I want to do with my life. I have had issues after issues with these corporate settings, and whilst I've made a fair share of my mistakes, I've made a few notably terrible mistakes, which I'll elaborate on at a different point in time, in a different video. But a lot of it is just there's rot all throughout. You know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to get too into it. So yeah, please check out Crisp. Please reach out and talk. We can chat over some video games or whatever about this project is mostly what I want to get into. But yeah, I want to build this community around that.